Hello and welcome. Welcome to Crown Bees. It's World Bee Day.
Bee Day. Yep. Does the world? I don't know, but it's a day to celebrate. There's bees out there that matter. So this is fun for us. We're a bee company. We get to talk about bees.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what, Julie? What are we doing here?
Well, first of all, we're trying to play with my cursor. I'm having a bit of an issue right now, but first of all, welcome to Crown Bees. This is World Bee Day. It's a live AMA. Hello from Texas. Hello. We are actually in Woodinville, Washington. We are just north of Seattle. So thank you so much for joining us. Hello from Central Texas. Hello. Let's see here. Dave, how can I get to... There we go. I'm using Dave's computer. So first of all, if you're already a subscriber, hello. Thank you so much for being a part of our community. And if you're not, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Our goal today is to hit 5,000 subscribes. That'll be a big
That's
deal.
incidental. We don't really.
Yeah, it was
does it really matter? Do we gain anything from this?
I don't know.
No, we don't. little two thumbs.
Absolutely. If you're wondering who I am normally, Kelly would be sitting here, who is our wonderful customer service representative. She's all things customer service and everything in between. Science.
Yep.
She's a brainy lady. I'm Julie. I'm the marketing and comms director, and with me is Dave. He's the guy.
I have been around a while. So.
He's the founder and owner of Crown Bees here in Woodinville. Like I said, he's a leading voice in the world of solitary pollinators. He's the author of Mason Bee Revolution and has partnered with researchers across North America, as well as last month. This was such a big deal for us. Last month, he was actually featured with Scott Simon on NPR's Weekend Edition. I have that linked in the description down below. Before we dive in, Dave, tell us about yourself. How did you get into mason bees? Why mason bees? What's the deal?
Yeah, mason bees and now leaf bees. But the years ago, a long time ago, my wife comes back from a class. She says, "Oh my gosh, these guys have this huge, big apple tree, same size as ours, thousands of apples. We had none." I said, "Well, go find out what they're doing differently." And so she came back. She goes, "They have mason bees, okay?" And back in the day, there was no internet. So we went to the library and sure enough, there's something in there that says, drill holes in a block of wood, which I did. And within a few years, we had little black bugs using these holes. And then we started getting thousands of apples. And so you kind of fast forward, last big recession, my Fortune 500 company closed their U.S. stores. I'm no longer the real estate director with 12 million square feet. Rather, I'm going to go head down the conservation path and see if I can get this little bug to work across the country. So you've found Orchard Bee Association. I'm an engineer.
Which you're a co-founder, aren't you?
I founded it.
Yeah, you are the founder.
Yeah, yeah. There are a couple people that were there with me, but I got the whole thing going. Which is, but the whole piece is, as an engineer, science matters to me. Researchers matter, and you can go make stuff up. You can whatever you want to do, but if you don't, with science, if you don't have them right next to you, then you could be selling cruddy products that don't work. And so we work with Cornell and Penn State and USDA and Michigan and Wisconsin and UW. We work with all these places to ensure that whatever we're saying is based off of truth.
Okay. Exactly.
So then you build a website, and then every single thing we've gleaned, we've put onto this website. Now it's been, copied by AI, and all of our little competitors are out there just copied all of our words.
Yeah.
And the answer is, it's not about our company. It's not about being the richest in the world. It's about making a difference.
It's about you.
Yep. Well, helping you make a difference.
Be successful.
Yeah. So this whole adventure is one that I enjoy, where I'm able to listen to where people don't see or don't have pollinators, and what can we do, whether you are, in a conservation district, whether you're just a backyard gardener. What am I doing to help you think through how bees think to then be successful. And that's probably been one of our latest advents is, sure, I want to have you guys nest in a house that is uniform and everything, but nowadays we're having bees nest in messy little holes. Well, why is that? Well, we're just thinking like a bee. So,
Exactly.
gosh, I did an AMA, my first one on Reddit years ago, and my son coerced me into this. He was 19 or 20 at the time. And sometime in the middle of the morning, he goes, Dad, he goes, you're number one on Reddit.
What?
Does this matter? He goes, no, it really, really matters. Okay. So I apologize for maybe dissing the folks out there on Reddit. But what's important is that the more people learn about these awesome wild bees, more people can then spread the word to others. And our want in this Ask Me Anything about wild bees, then let's see what we can do.
Exactly. Exactly. So if you've done an AMA before, if you've participated, you know the rules. I'll be reading questions live from the chat. Hello from Indiana and Portland. So feel free to post your questions. Be nice. We do have some questions also that we got from Reddit and some other folks, questions that we normally get during this time of year. So Dave really doesn't know what I'm going to ask. He wanted to. He tried.
I did ask.
But it's like, no. This is like the holiday morning, your birthday morning. You don't know what you're going to get. So we're going to start with the first question, which this is actually just a backup question just to get us started. Can you explain why solitary bees are different than honeybees? In a minute. Not the whole.
No.
We have a video if you.
No. Okay, well,
I'll link that below.
Give me my minute. The honeybee is social. Came across. It's the only honey-producing insect not native to. So there are no native honey-producing insects in all North America. So the honeybee came across 1600s because there wasn't any alcohol on the East Coast. There, mead, and it's one of them. That's why we have it here. The honey,
because they wanted to have a little sippy.
Yeah. The honeybee itself isn't a great pollinator. They've evolved. They have the queen lays 1,500 eggs a day. 1,500 little bits of pollen are needed per day, and so every grain of pollen is important to get back to that hive. So they keep it sticky on their hind legs before they leave that flower. They're just grooming themselves. No pollen is supposed to fall off back to the hive, and so that makes them a phenomenal pollen gatherer. Whereas your natives, belly flopping, kind of dry pollen again, and this pollen is just being spread because they're just trying to cram their scope of their hairy bodies into these flowers. And most pollen stays in the yard, and so the difference between the two is by sheer numbers, 60, 80,000 honeybees in a hive. Of course, some pollen is going to fall off in their area that they're talking about. But your wilds, whether it's a leaf bee or it's a mason bee, those are the pollen's being left in the field. So they're just wonderful pollinators. And I mean, it goes past this. Your wild bees are like this, bumbles and
and they just like to go flower to flower. Scary Fairy, hello. Just discovered you and mason bees. When is the proper time to set up and start my mason bees?
Earlier would be the this is the end of the mason bee season. The spring bees overwinter as an adult bee, and so they're coming out, depends upon where you are. Sometimes they're coming out mid to latter February, early March, all the way into late April. So the northern environments are maybe coming out mid-April. These bees are living 6 or so weeks, and the eggs they've laid are next year's bees. And so all of now I say this, the spring mason bee that we carry starts like that. There are other spring bees that might show up in May, maybe show up in late May, early June, but those bees have overwintered as an adult bee. Your summer bees, they start off the year as a larva, encased maybe in a cocoon or not. That little larva is there, and they use these warmer late spring, early summer days to suddenly metamorphose into spin cocoon, metamorphose into an adult bee. So the spring bee starts off as an adult. The summer bee turns into adult that season. And so those two places. So ergo, answer your short question long. Mason bee season was just a little bit ago.
Yep. Our last shipment day was the last Monday of April.
Yep.
And that's pretty typical every year.
Every
we
year.
open it up beginning of February.
So we have other bees. There are other bees. The leaf bee is a good summer bee.
Sure. Oh, we're getting questions. Wonderful. I love it. George Capaci. Let's see. I see you have two questions. The first one, I harvested 2,400 cocoons in 2024, but missed the buyback season. When is the best time to submit those cocoons? This is now the service he's talking about is our bee buyback program, which is just with us.
Okay. So even a little more important to me, years ago, I'm talking with the lead researcher in the country, Bill Kemp, on mason bees, okay, the blue orchard, Osmia lignaria. And there's just a specific heat regime that you do exactly this through June and July and August, all through the whole season. And I said, Bill, the bees of Washington State, are you saying I got to be following the same temperature regimes as August? Or I'm sorry, as down there in Utah? And he goes, well, no. Because my bees are a whole different, temperature. I said, so what about the bees of North Carolina? Do you follow the same Utah regime? He goes, oh, shoot, no, not at all. So it wound up being then, we have started programs across the country where we help people be so successful. They live in Philadelphia. They get a lot of excess cocoons, and they mail these back to us in October, November. So we'll get all these bees from the full country just peels into us. And then we say enough is enough. So we have enough bees out there. And then these bees now go into all these different bees bins. And then we aggregate these bins into like 8 different ecoregions so that the bees from wherever they started wound up going back to where they need to survive best.
Yeah. You don't want a Minnesota bee going to Florida and vice versa.
Or a Washington bee going to Utah. So
exactly.
We're trying to be very careful and trying to be as accurate or, helping your bees be successful. So where this person is asking, or they've got 2,400 cocoons, they've been successful.
Yeah.
And we'll be reaching out to you in October, November.
Yep. And by that time too, we'll teach you how to host a harvest party and give away your extras.
Different ideas.
Exactly. So we took a question. We're going to take a question from. This was another YouTube from a while ago. I was only able to hatch a few mason bees, but I left the house out anyways. When I checked the house, I found leafcutter bee cocoons in the tubes. Ha ha ha. Do these two bees work well together? And this was from Isaac Silva 8045. So do those bees work together in the same nesting?
Even lifting up higher, there's 1,000 species of cavity nesting, small, medium, and large bees. And some of them are spring bees. Some of them are summer bees. Okay. So they're in North America, they're everywhere. Okay. So bees are kind of vegetarians, kind of kumbaya. I'll use the same holes. I don't really care. I'm not going to fight you off or anything. The only danger that we've got is that if I have a reed that here's a reed, okay, that on the spring some mason bee used the inside part, then she just either got eaten by a bird or she
end of season, just
something like that. So she didn't finish. So she's got the inside part. No big deal. Okay. Now a summer bee comes along, leaf bee is a good example, and says, oh, look, here's this nesting hole. Let me go start using it. So you now have all of this later on bee using the outside. Not a big deal. This is kind of nature. Let things happen. Okay. The following spring,
if you don't harvest,
the following spring, or if you didn't the following spring, what happens if you don't do anything? Your mason bee is going to start to come out and boop, they hit this wall of leaf bits. Well, they can chew through and go all the way through and kill off all those leaf bees, or stay there and die. Okay, so the danger by leaving things out is that if a bee has used it, a little messy. So what was the question that I rambled on?
Do these two bees work well together? Which You just answered, and they're two different seasons.
Be careful when when a bee has finished, kind of take those nesting holes out and then provide other small, medium, and large reeds for other bees of that time of year.
Great. This one's a little longer, but there's a setup with it. This is from Reddit, from the subreddit Mason Bees, from any_salamander9138. My Masons have finished their season, and it went quite well by the looks of it. However, with a flashlight, I've discovered 2 rows, which are half full midway down the length, and their last sections were not fully capped in mud before the bees died off for the season. The final mud walls are partially made, and I can see pollen loaf in both. I'm unsure if there's larvae in either, as view is obstructed. Could I gently push some clay mud into the rows to finish sealing the hole, or would I be better off to leave it? I'd hate for a pest to enter should there be larvae inside either unfinished section. And this kind of goes along with what you were just saying.
I would, if anything, so yeah, the bee died, and you could say, let the survival of the fittest get out there. You're also taking, if there's an earwig out there or ants, you're taking their food from them. Ooh, why not have all this nice little yummy bee? I would actually take a little cotton swab or rolled up toilet paper and just kind of stuff it in there.
Oh.
And just boop. All you're trying to do is just stop someone else from getting to it. Would be, if you do nothing, and I've had a reed just sitting here on my desk at home, and some little larva made all the way out, falls to the ground. They're little white grubby thingies. And it was down there in my carpet, spinning a cocoon through the weave of my carpet fibers. And it's just like, oh, shoot. And it was halfway done. It's like, that's the the hard part is they're going to go spin their cocoon.
Yeah.
Where do you want it? And I wanted it to stay.
So, yeah. I just saw a photo this morning. Somebody, they had a tarp, and some mason bees laid a whole bunch of eggs. And what do I do?
It's a cute little bee that does what it needs to do.
Exactly. All right. Going back to some YouTube questions and comments. Kate Shaw, hello. I'm a Crown Bees customer. Well, thank you. With mason and leafcutter bees. Last year, the bees had several cycles during the long summer. Awesome. Probably 2 or 3 hatched. I wasn't sure the last harvest would be. So I'm guessing those were
this was leaf bees.
Leaf bees.
And ask the question again. I'll just make sure.
I wasn't sure when the last harvest would be.
Because she had several cycles.
Yes, 2 or 3 cycles hatched.
So it's not natural with using this leaf bee. It's a naturalized bee. Came across from Europe back in the 50s because there wasn't any bee that could handle the alfalfa. Slowly but surely the industry has taken off, and so 80 years later this bee is very prolific. It's found across the country, blah blah blah. Okay. Up in Saskatchewan, Ontario, Canada, where it's best, the climate up there's one season. Now you take this bee and you move it down south.
Okay. She meant 2 or 3 groups hatched. Okay. Thank you for the clarification, Kate.
Let me finish. Okay, so just on this line of thought, down further south, you're going to wind up, this is with the leaf bee, you're going to wind up with, if the temperatures are warm, all the eggs have been laid, they're inside there, and if it's like 65 or warmer, 70, you'll get a second season that can start with 1 or 2 eggs in there, and it turns into an adult bee, and out it plows through its sisters inside the hole, and you can even have a third set where the eggs of that time, so it's a very messy thing. And if you're trying to raise leaf bees, which is super easy to do, you're taking out the filled reeds, nesting holes wherever you can, and you're putting those someplace cooler, underneath your house, just someplace cooler. So what was her question then different?
It was 2 or 3 groups hatched, and I wasn't sure when the last harvest would be. And I think it just depends on where they are.
Still mason bee.
I don't know. Kate, could you clarify, please?
Okay. And actually, one of the things with mason bees is we're teaching people how to spread your pollination out. So start your first batch of mason bees let them out in early March, and then later March, and then early April, and then later April. So you could have maybe 6 weeks of placing out the bees, and then they're all going to live about 6 weeks. So instead of being just 1 6-week segment, I've now got maybe 12 to 15 weeks. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you look at all of this potential where the eggs have got to then consume the pollen, sit there as a bee, spin a cocoon, and then metamorphose. Well, they started, the very first egg is maybe 14 weeks later or earlier than the final egg.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how do these eggs all then collapse into let's go harvest in October and they're all 100% done? I've asked that question to researchers, and the conclusion that I've been able to come with, there's no research on this yet, but the warm summer months have all bees just get caught up.
Okay. And she did clarify leaf bees. So
Okay.
Speaking,
so, yeah, 2 different species, 2 different.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And the heat is different. Yep. Jenna Lentz says, I just got my first leaf cutters nesting in my house. I'm very excited. We're excited for you. Back to George Capacci. I hope I'm saying that right. Can one distinguish between mason bees and leafcutter bees as cocoons? I know I can.
Oh, yeah.
I know I can. The
yeah.
leaf bees, they literally use pieces of leaf. You're supposed to be answering, not me. But it's amazing when you have a whole bunch of leaf cocoons. It smells like you're in a forest.
And when you open these nesting holes up, it looks like a long little cigar tube, just full of just solid. And so the difference between a spring cocoon is, by the time you're looking at this in falls, the cocoon is in a little egg chamber inside the house, or inside their nesting hole. There's an egg chamber. Some bees use creosote from mesquite trees. Some use mud. Some use cactus pulp. So they're in there with their pollen mass. Egg is laid, and they're now closed that chamber with something. Okay. Other species use chewed up leaf bits, but nonetheless, some use even saliva, spit glands. It's called a spit bee. No.
How original.
No, it's not a spit bee. For you researchers watching this, I'm sorry for bastardizing that. Anyway, pollen egg something all throughout here, and that allows you to easily see where the chambers are, and the spring sides of these are all easily cocoons, one cocoon in a chamber, so it's easy to determine. When you find a leaf bee going down their hole, they've taken little pieces of round little leaf, and they've cut it perfectly out of some little hosta or lilac piece of flower. As she cuts it, she's now flying with it between her legs, and she stuffs it, and in her nesting hole, she creates little overlapping pieces. And so she's making a pocket that she now finally has all of her leaves out there. She goes, gets her pollen and nectar, pushes that back down the hole, finally lays an egg right there, and then cuts perfect little circles. She's analyzed exactly what size hole I'm in, and she brings in little circles, and she stuffs them between these chambers. So I've got round leafies, okay, and then little single, parts, and maybe I'm gonna say 10 or so little cuts here before she then begins this new piece again, and she's cementing this with her saliva. So these cocoons are leafy cocoons with, it's not actually a cocoon. It's I'm going to call it a
like armor.
Yeah, like a sleeping bag.
Yeah, I like that. This was from Reddit on the Our Mason Bees subreddit from A Trail of Disasters. I live in the PNW, Pacific Northwest, and I just released my mason bees a week ago. Still no activity in my reeds. Did I release too late, or do they prefer the blocks over the reeds? I have damp crown bees clay within 10 feet of the reed house and native flowering plants, and I followed crown bees instructions except for the spray. I'm new to this. We get this question a lot. Don't we?
That was a lot inside there. Which question am I answering first?
I think they're just wondering, did they release their mason bees too late because there hasn't been an activity, even though they followed our instructions?
In fairness, any bee that's native is out there. As they emerge, they're going to immediately mate. Okay, so they need to do that first. And as they head out to go find where they're going to be nesting, they're looking for holes of the right size. So the spring bee typically is using like an 8 millimeter hole. Okay, they're finding pollen and nectar nearby. That's cool. They're looking for this bee that we sell is a moist clay using bee. And the last little thing that's important for them as they're choosing where to live, it's an oasis. And so we've learned that if your neighbor is out there spraying crud into their yard or their lawn treatment, something like that, the downwind plume from that environment isn't healthy, and your bees typically give you the wing. Okay? and off they fly. And it's frustrating because it's not your fault. You're trying to do a good thing. You're trying to enhance the pollinators. And so we've actually got in our website what to do with these neighbors that are going to be spraying. And so I think if you search it's up over here. You'll see a little link up there. There's a link in there that's two different pieces. One of them is, hey neighbor, you print off a piece of paper, cut it in half. I'm going to be raising bees that fly into your yard for the next 6 weeks. They're going to be pollinating your yard. Could you please refrain from spraying? So probably I'm going to say the answer here would be more of the chemicals.
And what was the word you were trying to help me with this morning?
Neonicotinoids. What chemicals are safe for bees? Yeah, none. And what we're actually finding in the honeybee environment is there's all these things that are being sprayed. The honeybee it has to fly through this toxic stew because it needs to get back to their hive to support its honey and the eggs and the queen. So it's such a chained, wonderful bee, but it can fly through toxic stew. So that allows then the chem ag industry to spray to sell stuff to our farmers. I mean, it just is. The honeybee unfortunately allows this to occur. What the backside of things are, it might not kill the bee, but the larva that the bee put all the pollen and nectar into these little bee chambers or called bee bread, as they lay their egg there, that can be lethal to your larva. So it didn't kill the adult, it kills the baby.
Gotcha.
I mean, it's a little frustrating.
It is. If you're just joining us, welcome. I'm Julie with Crown Bees, and I'm here with our founder, Dave Hunter, for a special World Bee Day AMA. We're answering your questions live about native bees, pollination, how to support a healthy garden ecosystem. And if you'd like to learn even more about native bees, check out our website, crownbees.com. You can sign up for our bee mail. I'll be sending one out tomorrow. And check out our podcast, The Buzz on Bees, here on YouTube and on Spotify. Jane from YouTube here. I just took down my 2 mason bee houses and see 2 bee butts in the channels. I'm pretty sure they're dead. Should I try to take them out? There hasn't been any activity by my houses for several days. I'm so sorry, Jane.
Well, no, okay. She has to see the death. I mean, this is it's a natural piece. I think if you actually got a pair of little tweezers and pulled them out, I bet there's a little bit of life inside there. But in general, they their wings flap so many times before they're just dead, and they might have gone back in there, and then the weather just got too cold or too whatever, and they died inside there. And the answer is, I mean, you're either gonna throw away the body now, or in the fall when you're harvesting, you'll catch them then. So
you're doing your best.
It is part of life. And to think about it, okay, on a honeybee hive, 1,500 eggs are laid a day, 1,500 bees die a day. And we don't really think about that because these bees died someplace out there. A bird got them, spider got them, whatever. And then as they hit the ground, this is what your ants are looking for, and all these other critters that eat all these falling bodies. It's just part of this big circle of life. So it's kind of interesting to watch the death occur.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not that it's great watching death,
but science.
Science. There we go.
From Meow Meow. Hi from Oregon. Well, hello. Is there a way to detect Houdini flies in the cocoons?
Oh.
Thanks.
Pests. You're going to find the Houdini fly in two different aspects. When it's out there wiping out your bees today, okay, so as the mason bees were laying there, put the pollen and nectar inside there, the Houdini fly didn't evolve around here. Our bees don't even notice it. Will go right down that nesting hole and lay their eggs, like about a dozen eggs inside that hole, way back out. Or even if it gets caught inside there, the bee just kind of moves on past it because it hasn't evolved with this thing. And will wipe out laying their eggs through all of the chambers. What occurs then pretty soon, those eggs hatch almost immediately, consume all that pollen before the mason bee larva did. And so either the mason bee larva is killed because all those little pollen, pollen eating maggots. And then those maggots are stuck in a little chamber there between all the little mud walls that the mason bee put up. So you'll have lots of maggots that are all just in a mason bee environment. Very clearly white, gross, grain-sized bit of white, rice grain-sized bit of maggot. So it sits like this all season long. So in the fall, when you're opening these things up, it's clearly a bunch of little white maggots that are stuck between mudded walls. The cool thing about this insect, the Houdini fly, is in the springtime, it was once a larva. Okay, then it starts to metamorphose into a juvenile Houdini fly. No wings on it yet. And it's kind of stuck between two little chambers, okay, mud chambers. And so these bees have this really cool hydraulic head that they push their head into the crack in the wall and then swell their head, and just a little bit of mud falls out, and they just keep them going through there. And within minutes or whatever, they can push through the wall of the chamber, making them an escape artist. And so that's the name of Houdini flies. They can then plow their way out through the rest of the season.
Gotcha.
So you're going to kill it when it's flying, or kill it in the fall.
Smush, smush, smush. That is, we talk about it. Yeah. We talk about it every year. We also have a video with that you did with Dr. Katie Buckley of the USDA, which I will link up above. From Herb Gerhardt, I have 2 of your 8mm viewing blocks, the observer trays, and 1 6mm block. I have found that the mason bees almost always have filled the 6mm viewing block and very seldom use the 8mm viewing blocks, which are usually empty. I think the 8mm blocks are too big with the spacers you use.
Interesting, Herb. Interesting. I haven't put both out at the same time asking them the question. I'm typically putting the right one out, so they'll use what's right. My 2 cents, that's a good question. My 2 cents would be...
You stumped him. Good job.
No. My 2 cents would be, it's an 8mm size U-shaped piece, and that I don't know. I would continue to maybe not have the 6mm available to them, because a larger bee can cram themselves into a medium size, a smaller nesting hole. Why would they do that? And now you're not doing what I want you to do. It's like, okay, good. That's caught me. Huh.
That was the point. We had to get, that's really fascinating. That's awesome. Going back to George Capacci, which apparently I'm saying right. Awesome. Makes sense about mason versus leaf bees. I must have all mason bees. Some are dark, blue-black, others are brownish. different subspecies of mason bees?
Back in 1984, something like that, Dr. Susan Batra received from Japan 500,000 cocoons that are Osmia cornifrons as a gift from Japan to the US. These guys are amazing pollinators of our cherries, our apples. We use them all the time. You guys should consider this as well. And so Dr. Batra, this is all open banks. She sent a pile of the cocoons to Portland, Oregon, someplace in Wisconsin, and then the rest were kind of distributed amongst the eastern shore. A year or two later, 1985 maybe, the Congress went out and enacted the Invasive Species Act. You can't do that any longer. You can't just take an insect or a bird or anything and distribute it elsewhere. So cornifrons, the brown looking little bee, is just, it's a wonderful pollinator. It acts just like the mason bee, and I can't do anything about it as a company. We tried to we tried to be nasty about it a while ago and say, oh my gosh, all these bees, we'd send on the cocoons out to the East Coast and get our undies all bunched up. And we've now chosen to relax, that it is everywhere. And what's most important is that we are successful raising bees, and they're having bees that are successful in that area. So just kind of like we say, hey, you can't take that, you can't have apple trees in your yard because they're from Europe, and you certainly can't have cherry trees because those are from Japan, and you got to take up all that green fescue because that's from Scotland, and and those dandelions that came from England, and
where do you stop?
Where do you stop? And so we're just celebrating bees on World Bee Day.
Hey,
just it's most important for us that you're successful raising bees, whether they are brown or black.
Yep. Excellent. We've got a question this was from YouTube a while back, at Try It With Ranch, which that's a great handle. Is it a bad thing to have too many nesting materials?
Research in the almond industry years ago, decade ago maybe, concluded that more than 200 holes, reeds, in a house was less nested in, no more than 200. So they must have had 400 or something like that. And they found the places that had about 200 or less were more likely to be nested in too. So over 200 is, if you're just trying to see who's going to nest in there or what can they nest in, less is better. Now they didn't do this study, and the question is why? We have been thinking like a bee, and you go back a millennia ago, and the bees nested in an old dead tree someplace out there, and there's just a hole pecked into it, and they evolved to find that one little hole in that tree. And so I use my little cilia, these little false eyes on top of my head. I get to rate precisely there, okay? And then when that hole's filled, I'm now hunting around in that same dead tree for another nesting hole, okay? That's natural. Now, let's go out and do humans, okay? And oh my gosh, look, we're going to put all the holes right there. How easy it is for the bees to use. And they didn't evolve this way. So they're going to go out and get lost. I didn't evolve to have all these options from I evolved for one little hole there. And so crown bees started off with a whole bunch of holes and wood trays that were homogeneous, and all of our little white tubes were all just solid bank of these things. It's not preferred. So when you go out here and put little sticks between and put colors in them, this is a lot messier, and it's while still not natural, it's better than just a homogeneous wall. In fact, I know the green's gonna fizzle on us, but our wood trays used to be just boring old trays, but we've now the bees don't mind using them when we're
Mhm.
putting colors between them and slashes of paint colors.
Mhm.
So this is more preferred. And so we're
Yep.
just trying to just think, we're trying
The
to
other
think
way.
like a bee.
Like that house.
Yeah.
So let's see. Haha. This is a question. It's not so much a question as when I'm on Reddit. I do moderate the leafcutter subreddit as well as crown bees. I see a lot of folks that are proud of their bee houses, but as Kelly would say, they would look better in your house rather than as an actual bee house because it's considered a
POS.
POS.
Piece of stuff.
So I do have kind of a canned answer that I give folks of like, hey, by the way, we love that you are putting things out there for bees. However, the bamboo is a little too short. You can't get it out. And with the length of it, that has a huge impact on population, doesn't it?
The sad part, again, let's go back to where the bees evolved years ago. One hole pecked into a tree, the bees emerge the following season, and that hole deteriorates behind them. They probably will never use this hole again.
Mm-hmm.
When I have a reed that's been protected inside one of these houses, the bees they didn't evolve where the holes didn't deteriorate behind them. So they're going to go out here and the bees will emerge. They're going to, yeah, I came from here. I'm going to go back into here. Now, what we didn't realize is this great pile of food and larvae and all these things attracts a lot of other predators, pollen mites, parasitic wasps,
Mm-hmm.
there's
Mono.
fungus, there's now Houdini fly.
Yep.
So do nothing. And it's natural, do nothing. Those pests stay behind. The bees that did live will come out and go nest right back on top of awaiting pests.
Mm-hmm.
So these pollen mites that were inside there are going to be walking up and down the hole. Just the bees don't see them. The bees are gathering brand new pollen, laying it on there where there's already pollen mites from last year, and they're just consuming everything. And the Houdini flies it's just such a mess. So a researcher out of Chicago, I don't know, January, February, said, Dave, it would have been so much wiser for the person to have not bought one of those POSs from China and instead spent the money on a native plant, because so many bees die in those old houses that you don't clean. And I guess, and physically, if you buy one of our houses that you can take the holes apart, but if you just leave them in there, you're doing the same thing. It would be better to just
get a plant,
not do anything.
Exactly.
So if you're going to help the bees out, go have a woodpecker in an old dead tree, put holes out there. Would be the natural piece.
Yeah.
Part of it is, I think there's that. The other part is that we, the humans on top of the chain here, have a need for an awful lot of pollen. You go back 1,000 years ago, there wasn't a lot of pollen everywhere. Man, we have, because we think flowers are beautiful. We have cherry trees and apple trees and strawberries and all these things, all these beans and peas. And so there's such a demand for pollen. It's just not natural. And so I think the bees have a tough time meeting our demands, and the pests are backfilling this whole need because we're putting so many, we've started the pressure by needing more bees, and by putting these bee houses out there and not maintaining these bees, then we're probably causing more harm.
Sure. And the sheet that you mentioned, or the page that you mentioned, if you find your neighbor who's spraying pesticides, the other sheet on there is if you find a neighbor who has one of those
POSs,
and you want to adopt their house and their bees, there's a little sheet that you can hand them.
And the reason we're actually saying that is the vector for like the Houdini fly and a lot of these pollen mites, etc. Your neighbor who does nothing, as the bees emerge, the pollen mites emerge, all these things are all emerging, spreading into the flowers. The Houdini fly comes, visits your house. All of this came from their cruddy house. And so better than just saying, there's nothing you can do about it. go adopt their house.
Right. Exactly.
So
Exactly.
we're trying to teach you how to teach your neighbor. If you're not going to manage them, let me manage them. It's just then I get all the food, I get all the bees, I get, and the bees from your yard are going to get their neighbor's yard anyway. So
exactly,
it's a win-win.
it really is.
And third one is for the bees.
Yeah, exactly. But if you want to learn more about that, we do have a podcast episode where Dave and Kelly talk about the different ones, where I actually just put up different pictures and they graded them. So we've got a few more questions. This is fantastic. Thank you, everyone, so much for sending in your questions ahead of time and during the chat. Feel free to continue asking, and you can always send us questions at info@crownbees.com or start a chat on our website. For Serotonin, hi Sharon. We're going to be working with her. She has some of our products on her site. For the very small reeds, 3 to 5 millimeter, do you harvest and release the cocoons like you do with masons and leaf cutters, or just let nature do its thing? I don't know enough yet about the other wild bees. And this is the time to start talking about wild bees. What's in your backyard, or what isn't?
So my take here is, as we evolve with our understanding of the bees, when I've got too much of one thing, nature's going to mess with it. If I have a little bitty 1 or 2 something filled here, nature probably won't mess with it as much because it's probably more natural. And parasitic wasps, there's some cool tiny little wasp little stuff, aphids in there, or crickets, or caterpillars from your yard. There probably isn't a need to harvest and hold cocoons, etc. Where we're leaning is to be aware of what's in your yard. So people are always saying, "Oh, I know when my marigolds show up, or I know when my fruit trees are blooming." To know when a bee species moves in is to then kind of possibly chart this. Oh, the bee's finished, and I know it's these little small things with a chewed vegetation end. Just take those things out and bundle them and bring those out next year. I mean, it's a little awareness piece, and we're on the front cusp of understanding who's out there and what makes them tick.
Makes them buzz.
Make them buzz.
It's World Bee Day. We got the puns.
Sure.
From LV Summer, what type of paint is safe to use to paint the front of the wooden nest? Going back to the painting question. Anything.
Or oil-based or anything. Just as long as you give it a little bit of extra time to let the VOCs, the volatile organic compounds, you just want to have those things dissipate. So there's, paint it, wait 2 or 3 days, expose it to the sun, and then you're fine.
That's great. Back question from Jane. Yeah, thank you. Dave, I'm so impressed with your wide swath of knowledge on the history of bees. We've been doing it a while. Thanks for sharing and giving me confidence. Giving me confidence to pinch out the bee butts. Serotonin. Ooh, charting is my jam. Thank you. Wow. Please ask some questions. We've got so much more.
Okay, actually, those that are watching, the questions that you if you cared, what's going wrong with the honeybee? Someone asked that question. What's going wrong with the insects of the planet? There's there's such a mess right now. Sure, we know a lot about these 2 insects, but the world's 24,000 species of bees are all under huge duress. Okay. If someone cares, ask the question. I mean, I can go in because I know the answer, but
he's got a lot to say.
Ask some subset of one of those questions would be just fine.
Here's another one, and I don't remember where it came from, but if somebody lives in an apartment or doesn't have a big yard, how can they still help native bees?
Pollen and nectar would be put that on your porch. Okay, the bees would hopefully find it. I think anything below 4 floors and below, I think, are still sources. In my backyard, I've got these huge big leaf maples. And I have, if I know that the bees, can get up there, the pollen, the little flowers turn into helicopters. Okay. And I have helicopters at 4 to 5 floors up. Okay. So someone was able to get there. So pollen and nectar source at these places. And then some little house that makes sense that will allow the bees to nest there. Yeah, probably that. I would never add a honeybee hive out in a city, but I would always add a source of pollen and nectar for them. And what do I want to go out and what type of plant should I get? Walk down to a local nursery in June or May or August, and as you walk on through the nursery, listen to who's buzzing. Which bushes are being visited by the bees? By that bush.
Mm-hmm. That was some great advice from Joe DeLugo.
Yep. And the next month or whatever. And then also as you're doing this, you'll find there's just tiny little bees that you won't even hear them by those bushes as well. I mean, if you're going to go garden for wildlife, typically in a nursery, it's going to be a place that has flowers, smell or something like that. But that's the bees will tell you what they want to nest in or use as a source of food.
That was great. This is a question actually from me. What is the most surprising thing you've learned in this 20-some year journey?
I was going to say I should have stayed in real estate.
Maybe not right now. Or
yeah. It's a very interesting walk when you are in a brand new industry. No one in the world associated that if you didn't have clay available for a clay using bee, you probably won't have that bee. And I started that story off with a couple of researchers, and I said, so if we take my bee from the Northwest that uses clay and I drop it into a desert where there are bees using cactus pulp and stuff like that, what do things happen to my bee? And they said, your bee's gonna fly away. So I'm gonna take this same cactus pulp using bee and move it up to the Northwest where we've got other pollen and stuff like that. What's gonna happen? Everyone kind of said, well, duh, it's just gonna fly away. And the aha moments are that people aren't thinking like a bee. These bees need to use nest in holes like this. These bees need sun like this, or temperatures that are, at the right times of year. These bees need the right nesting media, whether it's mud or tree resin or whatever. I mean, it's the understanding of these small elements that we've just been the ones, only us have been the ones asking, well, what could be going wrong, or what should we be doing for better success? And so it's probably, to answer your question, is what are the biggest aha moments is I just thought there was more knowledge out there, and it's been just us creating this knowledge, and everyone's copying it afterwards, which is fine. But that probably is, I just thought there would have been more, the world would have been further along.
Okay, interesting. So we're going to start closing it up, but to kind of wrap up everything, what's the one thing a bee beginner can do today to support native bees for the future? What is your biggest takeaway?
Again, the bee is looking to mate, find nesting holes of the right size, pollen and nectar that works for them, and then the nesting material, whether it's mud or tree resin or whatever, and then a healthy environment.
Yes.
Okay, so chemical-free type thing. When you ask those 5 things, you can't do much about the mating, but the other 4.
Well, you could set some ambient music, some candlelight,
small,
right?
small, medium, and large size holes. It's those elements are aware to just, like I was in my house years ago when we added just drilled holes and bees showed up. The difference between, I didn't add any bees. What was missing was an old dead tree in my yard that had these nesting holes. We don't want dead trees in our environments. So when I finally put housing back for the bees, they showed up. Okay. And our walk through this summer, we know all of these species of bees and solitary wasps that we use in these holes. It's close to 1,000 of them in North America. We're just going to be walking through just saying, where are these? They're missing. And, you know, I say missing, their numbers are significantly lesser. Small little, this is an awareness point. 50 years ago, Germany some German scientists started analyzing the biomass that insects would be going through their small little areas. And they every single year measured that biomass, weighed it. And now then, let's say 12 or 13 years ago, they concluded, and they found over their 20 years of analyzing biomass, there's been an 80% loss of biomass. So bees, spiders, insects, you know, katydids, all these things has been dropping off significantly. And they said, hey, rest of the world, who else has records? No one else had records. And this is a very, very sad statement when you look at your food pyramid, and we're going to go soil down here and microbes and nematodes inside your soil. And then the next peer up is you've got grass thingies, and then you have insects that are here at this row. And the next one is things that eat the insects, and then things that eat the things that eat the insects. Then you finally have eagle or fox or whatever the top. Okay. When 80% of one of your layers is missing, that's just unsustainable.
It is.
And a month ago, 3 weeks ago, there was a big whole something out here in the papers that said, wow, the songbirds and the migratory birds, they're off by huge numbers. I wonder what could be going wrong. Well, one of the problems is their food source is gone. Okay. And this is 3 or 4 years ago down in the southeast. So I said, wow, we're seeing less and less frogs and geckos. And you know, it's like, well, we're spraying and killing off all of the insects that these, you know, amphibians use for food.
Right.
And so we're doing this. We,
as humans. I mean, just think about your windshield going on a long car ride. You don't have as many bugs on your windshield as we did 20 years ago.
Yeah. When I actually do, I go, ooh, you know, celebrate. Well, I smashed it.
Right. Exactly. That means there's some life here.
So it's the awareness piece. And what can we do about this? It's in, you know, the best vote you have is your local mayor.
Sure. Okay. And actually this ties into, Jane has this question tying into all of this. She's in Seattle. Hello. And we have legislators here who are aware of the environmental dangers and needs now. With that said, how else can we help protect the bees in our areas? And you were just about to start that.
Yeah,
with your vote.
With your vote. And my point here, even tighter than that, is I can vote with my yard.
Yes.
Okay, my yard is an oasis. Yes. And I can talk with my neighbors about expanding my bubble of oasis into their yard by saying, do you need to have artificially green lawn? Do you need to be spraying this stuff? Do you need to have a POS stuck on your wall? You think you're doing good by having a pristine yard. You think you're doing good because you bought some nice Amazon something, Temu something, Walmart something that's come from China. It's you are the voice of helping expand these bubbles to just slowly expand. And that's where we're working with pollinator partnerships. We're working with the wild ones. We're working with pollinator pathways. Planet B, all these places, the organizations that are conservation organizations, but we're trying to help them learn this lore that you guys know more than probably most. The more people that learn, can we do just a little better for just it's these ETBT pieces at a time is where we need to be headed.
Exactly. And it's May, so a lot of folks are talking about No Mow May. And we did a video last year where it was like, May we plant more flowers.
Yeah, May we plant more flowers.
May we plant more flowers.
So it's either that
So
or
it was-
May we have. Yeah, it was either
yeah,
one, yeah.
we were having
May.
fun with that.
Okay.
So I'll link that above.
And
This
so
has
on a
been
World
fantastic.
Bee Day, it is I think it's the awareness point
Mhm.
that there are bees out there.
Yeah.
My company cares.
All the bees need help.
And our biggest competitor is who?
Ignorance.
Yeah, no.
That was my first day on the job.
Yeah.
A year and a half ago. Dave was like, "You're a marketer. What do you think our biggest competitor is?" And I'm thinking, okay, one, I don't know anything about bees.
Right.
And I'm thinking, well, honeybees. And he's like, no. Misunderstanding and misinformation and ignorance. And I'm like, oh, because the first thing I thought of was a honeybee. And the next thing I thought of was the all bee sting. None of that is true.
Yeah, right. And so for the World Bee Day, it's part of its awareness.
Yeah.
And it's awareness of what we're doing to, if we have no bees around us, the big leaf maple doesn't get pollinated. Whatever thistles or something like that in the countryside don't get pollinated. So then your quail and mice don't have seeds to eat. And so, which then you can just see we're just interrupting that. So the bee, because they move the pollen the most out of all, I guess a hummingbird does pollinate. Yes, a butterfly kind of does pollinate. But
foxes, I've heard recently.
Because I've just brushed off.
Yeah.
But the bees are the most, I'm going to say, keystone insect. We're talking 20,000 species. Sure. But without those things, the world just starts to look uglier. Okay. And so the awareness that they're there, and then what can I do? Little oasis. Is it plural? Oasis?
Oases.
Oases. Okay. There we go.
So that's all we have for today, Dave. Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us and sending in your questions during the chat and before. We hope you learned something new about native bees. And please share this video and subscribe. We'd like to hit that 5,000 subscriber mark. And just doing small actions in your yard is such a big help. Don't forget to sign up for Bee Mail, which I have linked below, as well as checking out our podcast, The Buzz on Bees, here on YouTube, as well as on Spotify. And then from all of us, oh, meow, meow, thank you. This was great, wasn't it? From all of us at Crown Bees, happy World Bee Day. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Be well.
Be well.